All Hallows Eve, that time of year, all creatures from beneath are unleashed to the world. It's time to return to where we all started. Another year, but the scares continue. Another month, but the fear proceeds to rise. This is the Venom month of Horrors 2, the quest for Shet.
Hello and welcome to the second annual Venom month of Horrors. Another year, and it doesn't get any less scary. And today, we're returning to the world of Hitchcock. Psycho tells the story of Marion Crane, played by Janet Leigh. She's dating Sam Loomis. Not that one. And they're in a lot of debt, but Marion, whilst at work, has a client drop off $40,000, which she decides to steal and take off with to help her and her fella. During her runaway, a cop finds her and immediately becomes suspicious of her actions, so she panics, ditches her car, gets a new one, and the suspicions grow until she decides to stop at a random little motel run by Norman Bates, played by Anthony Perkins. However, she gets attacked and murdered in the shower that night. Her disappearance is quickly noticed, leading to an investigator finding the motel and checking it out before he too is eliminated, eventually leading to Sam himself and Marion's sister going along to try to take down Norman, whom they've grown suspicious about, as well as his mentally ill mother, but there's a bit of a twist. Throughout the film, we hear Norman's mum give him abuse and we see her attacking people, but it turns out that she actually died a decade ago and it sent Norman insane. He refuses to let this go, often masquerading as her in drag and even imitating her voice, acting out the killings on her behalf, but he's eventually captured and sent to the loony bin.
Really?
The movie was based off of Robert Bloch's 1959 novel of the same name, which in turn was loosely inspired by Wisconsin convicted murderer Ed Gein. Gein and Bates were both murderers in isolated locations, both had deceased and at times demanding mothers, both had shrines dedicated to them, and both dressed in drag. The only difference is that Gein wasn't technically a serial killer, as he had only been charged with murder twice. Alfred Hitchcock's assistant had read a review of the novel and showed it to him, despite the studio already rejecting his idea for a feature film. It didn't deter the filmmaker, however, who purchased the rights for $9,500, and he even asked his assistant to buy up as many copies of the book as possible to keep things in it a surprise for the movie. The studio was still against it and refused to give him the budget that he was normally used to. He did try to compromise, however, and offered to shoot it quickly and cheaply in black and white using his crew from his Alfred Hitchcock Presents TV series. Despite this, the studio still refused, claiming their sound stages were all booked up. Alfred insisted and even offered to fund the movie himself and find his own locations, as long as they at least distribute it, and they finally greenlit the movie. They didn't ask for much then.
No, not really.
One of his writers, James P. Kavanagh, wrote the original script, but Hitchcock felt like it dragged, and it was more like a TV short horror story. He met with another writer, Joseph Stefano, who quickly got the job. The script was really close to the novel, with only a few slight changes. In the book, Norman Bates is middle-aged, overweight, and more unstable and unsympathetic. When Hitchcock cast Anthony Perkins, they made a few changes. Bates also had a drinking problem which was erased, and he was also heavily into spiritualism, the occult, and pornography. And unlike the book where it opens with him, they don't introduce him in the movie until 20 minutes in. In the book, Marion only covers 2 chapters, but they wanted to expand it so it's half of the story. In the novel, Marion's sister investigates Norman's house and finds a book of pornographic illustrations, but in the film we don't see what's there. It's all left up to your own imagination. There was also a romance between Sam and her sister Lila.
Can't believe it.
Which was cut out to focus more on the murder mystery instead, as they also thought it would make Sam Loomis unlikable. Oh, just cheating on his girlfriend with her sister, what would give you that idea?
Why do you ask that?
The novel is also a lot more violent, as the famous shower scene she's actually decapitated and not stabbed. During the entire production, the studio was against this picture being made. They had their money and no bail for the judge, starring Audrey Hepburn, to be a hit, but she fell pregnant and had to bow out, completely cancelling it. They felt like the Psycho book was too repulsive and impossible for movies to get away with. They didn't like a single part of the idea or script. Ironically, Hitchcock didn't want the shower scene to be too gory, which is another reason that it was shot in black and white, as well as to save money. The crew cost $62,000. Janet Leigh was paid $25,000, which is a quarter of what Hitchcock would normally pay, but she instantly said yes after reading the novel herself, and Perkins was given $40,000. Filming began on a budget of $807,000 altogether on November the 11th, 1959, ending on February the 1st the next year, often starting in the morning and lasting until 6 p.m. The actors were given free range to improvise as long as it didn't involve moving the camera, and during production Hitchcock actually hid versions of the mother's corpse in Janet Leigh's dressing room, which she did find genuinely funny. You know, Hitchcock gets a bad rep, but here he sounds like he has a great sense of humour. I mean, on set he always referred to Anthony Perkins as none other than Master Bates. I like this guy.
Of course.
The famous and now iconic shower scene was shot between December 17th and December 23rd, 1959, but Janet Leigh had to postpone it twice, once for a cold and the other for her menstrual cycle. But an amazing 77 different camera angles were used for the sequence. It runs for only 3 minutes and includes 50 cuts. There was a popular rumour that she was screaming so loud because Hitchcock wanted it to be as realistic as possible, so he used ice-cold water, but Janet denied this in many interviews and claimed that the crew were very accommodating and gave them all hot water throughout the entire shoot. Regardless, the actress was so affected by this scene she refused to ever take a shower again unless she absolutely had to. And even then she would have to lock all of the doors and windows in her house and would always leave the bathroom and shower doors open. She didn't realise until watching the film just how vulnerable and defenceless you are in that situation. Hitchcock even once received a letter from an angry father who claimed that his daughter refused to have a bath after seeing Jobalik in 1955, and thanks to him she also wouldn't shower. Hitchcock replied and simply said, "Send her to the dry cleaners." Okay, a bit douchey there. But he has a point. She has to get clean somehow, the dirty bitch.
Shut up! Shut up!
The movie obviously caused controversy, but not for reasons you might think. Back then, it was unheard of to show such sexuality, but the movie opens with 2 lovers in a bed, one of which is wearing a bra. And during this time, unmarried couples shown in the same bed was just outrageous. It was further pushed as Perkins, who was allegedly a homosexual, cross-dressed, and a cop quite insensitively says,
Why was he dressed like that?
well, you know, it's a psychological thing, you know, he seems to think that he's his mother, and...
He's a transvestite.
all that. Just a smidge insensitive.
Yes. And no.
And this will sound strange, but Marion is shown flushing a toilet at one point. And this was a really big deal. This is the first mainstream film to have ever shown a flushing toilet before. This was actually really ballsy for its time. Nowadays, YouTubers just openly show their toilet with shit inside.
How could we prove it?
Hitchcock also administered a policy for the film that wouldn't let viewers into the cinema to see it if they were late. He felt like if they missed the start and didn't see the lead actress, they would feel cheated. At first, the theatres hated the idea, worrying that they would lose business, but after the film gained a following, there were lines of people to see it. Hitchcock promoted the movie entirely on his own, and he wouldn't let the lead stars do any interviews, worrying that they would reveal too much. In fact, on set, he actually made every single crew member promise to not reveal a single word of the story to anyone, and he wouldn't even let any of them know the ending until it was finally time to shoot. Critics weren't allowed to get advanced private screenings either, and the trailer simply has the director taking us on a tour of the set, and he almost spoils the plot himself before stopping.
This young man, you had to feel sorry for him. After all, being dominated by an almost maniacal woman was enough to drive anyone to the extreme of, well, let's go in.
But Psycho was finally released on September the 8th, 1960, and it was so successful it was even re-released 5 years later. In 1961, CBS actually purchased the television rights for $450,000 and wanted to televise it on September the 23rd, 1966. But unfortunately, 3 days beforehand, daughter of Illinois Senate candidate Charles H. Percy, Valerie Percy, was stabbed to death, and the movie was postponed out of respect. But at first, reviews of the film were actually mixed. Strangely, Hitchcock himself was actually unhappy with it at first. He even hated the shower scene and thought the movie would bomb. It was to the point he wanted to edit it down for his TV show, but it wasn't until the music was added that he realised it would work. He admitted much of the film's tension is the score, which he was so happy with he actually increased composer Bernard Herrmann's salary. There is not an abundance of subtlety or the lately familiar Hitchcock bent towards significant and colourful scenery in this obviously low-budget job. There's slow build-ups to sudden shocks, but they're reliably melodramatic. Hitchcock has psychological points reminiscent of Kraft Ebung's studies, but less effective. While the film did not conclude satisfactorily for me, the cast's performance is fair. British critic C.A. Lejeune was actually so offended that she not only walked out before the end of the movie, but she even permanently resigned as film critic for The Observer. Wow, someone needs to get laid.
Shut up!
Others called it a blot on Hitchcock's honourable career, some called it just a gimmicky movie, others said it was one of his TV shows just padded out to 2 hours. But on the other side, others called it the best performance of Perkins' career and stated that Janet Leigh has never been better. Some called it the first American movie since Touch of Evil to stand in the same creative rank as the great European films, others said it would unfortunately inspire other directors to just show more gore, and some critics bitched that it was impossible to get tickets so they had to rush their reviews out. You're bitching at Hitchcock for being successful.
No, not exactly.
But the New York Herald Tribune said it's difficult to be amused at the psychotic aspect of it and that it keeps your attention constantly. Entertainment Weekly voted Psycho as the 7th scariest movie ever made. Watch Mojo put it as the #1 greatest horror ever. But screw Watch Mojo, no one cares about them.
I don't.
And the American Film Institute listed it as the 14th greatest film in history, and the famous line,
Well, a boy's best friend is his mother.
as the 56th greatest movie quote of all time. Yeah, tell that line to Eminem.
I'd really rather not.
The public loved it, and as the box office numbers grew, a lot of critics changed their tune. It became the most successful black and white movie ever made, grossing $50 million. The film blew up the thriller and horror genre forever, becoming Hitchcock's most known movie in history. In the book, the author introduced sympathetic protagonists, but then shockingly killed them off early. Hitchcock realised how well this worked and used it in the film, adding on to the fact that the character was played by one of the biggest names back then. It was a huge deal. The shower scene went down in horror history as one of the most terrifying scenes ever made, especially with a lack of budget, but thanks to the rapid editing, it was still horrifying. Many even dubbed this the first ever film in the entire slasher genre, and it kick-started Anthony Perkins' career, though he often got typecast. But he always claimed he still would have taken on the role even if he knew in advance that that would have happened. He and Janet Leigh both didn't mind and said they would rather be stereotyped and remembered for this classic than not be remembered at all.
Frankly, yes.
However, it wasn't without a price. Janet Leigh received threatening calls, letters and even tapes over the years explaining graphically what they wanted to do to her character Marion. One was so grotesque it was passed on to the FBI, though the culprit was eventually caught. Honestly, as soon as the film starts you get that Psycho theme and it's one of the greatest ever composed. It's just amazing and gets you pumped instantly. Hey, oh look, it's a Christmas movie.
Yeah. Live with me in a storeroom behind a hardware store in Fairvale. We'll have lots of laughs. Tell you what, when I send my ex-wife for alimony, you can lick the stamps.
I'll lick the stamps.
How the hell does she make that sound sexual? I'm just going to the shop. Do you need anything? Oh yeah, dude, could you just mail this letter for me? That'd be great help. Oh, no problem, honey. I'll lick the stamps. Okay, thanks. I might get biscuits, and I might rub them. You're a bit weird, dude. The music is often very subtle, but is utilised expertly. I mean, here, she's just simply packing her bag to leave, and yet you're on the edge of your seat thanks to the amazing score. She sucks at hiding her crime, though. I mean, she wakes up to see a cop, and her immediate instinct is to try and drive off at high speed. Stealthy. But hey, her reg nearly says anal. As much as I love the Psycho theme, it works here because she's worried that the cop is following her. It serves its purpose to build suspense and tension to add to the paranoia. But 3 minutes earlier, all she's doing is just driving normally and it's playing. Why? She's just driving. And I get why the cop follows her, but hey, she sucks at hiding her crime and he sucks at hiding the fact that he's following her. Jesus, he just stands there and stares. How much more obvious could you get? And he almost got me busted for having marijuana. That sounds messed up. I know. It was crazy.
me shouldn't have bothered. I really don't have that much of an appetite.
Bitch, you said you did!
I want sleep more than anything else, except maybe food.
Ungrateful cow.
My hobby is stuffing things. You know, taxidermy. And I guess I'd just rather stuff birds because I hate the look of beasts when they're stuffed.
And, well, Hitchcock made this, and he's got some weird obsession with them. Perkins is absolutely amazing in this. He's creepy and yet acts so normal and sympathetic. When Marion meets with him, you actually feel really sorry for him as he explains his mother issues. As he meets others, the way he just sounds so casual and normal despite his split personalities, it's creepy as hell. However, when questioned, he is a terrible liar.
Tell me all about her.
Well, she arrived rather late one night, and she went straight to sleep and left early the next morning.
Well, how early?
Oh, very early.
Mm-hmm. Which morning was that?
The next morning, Sunday.
I see. Mm-hmm. Did anyone meet her here?
No.
Did she arrive with anyone?
No.
Uh-huh. Did she make any phone calls or
No.
locally? Did you spend the night with her?
No.
Well, then, how would you know that she didn't make any phone calls?
No, I thought I was a bad liar. Oh look, she's flushing the script for the remake. And honestly, this shot is bone-chilling as the door opens in the background. It's an amazing beginning to an iconic scene. But the water continues even after she dies. I'd hate to be the dude who pays the water bill. And even a simple montage of Norman disposing of the body is creepy as hell. There's this ominous music as he covers up his tracks. It is awesome. But this private investigator even breaks and enters Norman's home. What a great detective. But honestly, the suspense is built so well as he roams the house. Holy shit! Okay, not even gonna lie, to this day, that scene still scares the shit out of me. The music, the camera angle, it is so creepy looking, this is incredible. Although, she stabs his chest and it cuts to his face being hurt for some reason.
I don't know.
This guy's a massive arsehole though. Since Marion and the investigator have both vanished, they contact this guy for help, but he dismisses absolutely everything.
Your detective told you he couldn't come right back because he was going to question Norman Bates's mother, right?
Yes.
Norman Bates's mother has been dead and buried in Green Lawn Cemetery for the past 10 years.
And I didn't tell you before I called Norman because I'm an asshole! Seriously, Norman wouldn't have had enough time to tell him in that really short phone call. And why would he anyway?
And the young man wouldn't let him see her because she was too ill.
Well, if the woman up there is Mrs. Bates, who's that woman buried out in Green Lawn Cemetery?
No, seriously, that is actually really, really creepy. And they basically refuse to get the police involved because they know about Marion stealing the money and don't want to get her in trouble. But come on! 2 people have gone to this place and 2 people have gone missing. Take a hint and stop sending people there!
I'll show you the room then.
First time I've ever seen it happen. You check in any other place in this country without bags and you have to pay in advance.
Is that really a rule? Because I've never heard of that. Maybe it's a 60s thing or an American thing, but makes no sense. That's really dumb. Okay, and why do they even need keys? Norman gives the keys to the cabins, but then they clearly walk into random ones to investigate, and they're all unlocked. In fact, he seems to leave every damn door unlocked in this place. And wouldn't his mum's body have to have weighed a ton to leave an imprint in the bed like that? I don't care how long she was there for, and she couldn't have been there that long because the investigator spotted her at the window earlier. Even though she's clearly standing on her own here, which ruins the twist, really. Alright, it is creepy as hell when she finds the skeleton and Norman runs in dressed as his mother, but when the hell did he even find the time to do that? And in fact, how did he even manage to mimic her voice so perfectly so many times? Because in the film, it was actually voiced by several women, but this is just silly. And there's a whole lot of exposition about Norman's backstory to end the film, which I think is unneeded. I mean, they explain everything about his psychosis and mother issues, and it's stuff that the viewer could easily figure out themselves just by watching the damn film. And it lasts forever, we get it, you can end now! Although it's creepy as hell as Norman speaks inside his head but with his mother's voice. The whole movie is just creepy, chilling and eerie. It's a great story that does actually hold up this many years later, and I still find genuinely scary. And of course, due to his success, 3 sequels were produced in 1983, 1986 and 1990, which is a part prequel television movie with Perkins returning for every one, even directing part 3, and even a TV series followed in 2013. And Psycho continues to terrify decades later. There you go. People wanted Hitchcock, you got 2. I know there's more, but we're done. We're done for this year.